I was acting a lot without really the background, and so I picked myself up at about the age of 33, and I went to England and I studied at RADA, which is the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, and people like Diana Rigg and Alan Bates and Albert Finney graduated from there, and so it gave me this wonderful background about how to sword fight and, you know, wear these enormous skirts and fall over and come up with perfect breath control. But I don't know, I was picking up different pieces. But I think in Toronto, over the years, what happens is that to make a living in the city, that I ended up sort of learning a whole bunch of different skills, and because of it, I could earn a living.
Right.
If I wasn't doing one thing, I would do another.
All of this came together when the series You're Beautiful began on City TV. It went on for 6 years. It's now in rerun. It's been syndicated all over North America.
Someone came up to me the other day and he says, it's like I Love Lucy. It's going to go on.
It's a great show. And I think what made it work is that you weren't picking the brains of your guests so much as relating to them. The things they were talking about were things that you could relate to and talk about with great authority.
Well, I have an innate sense of curiosity, and I don't know. I think I could ask questions that other people would not ask on television. I don't know why. I mean, I just sort of calmly said, okay, how many times a week do you have sex? And they would tell me. I don't
Right.
But it seemed to work, and there was a comfort. There seemed to be a comfort zone there, and I was walking down the street the other day, and a woman jumped out of her car and chased me down the street. And she said, "Oh, I'm so glad you're back on television."
Right.
But there was something that people related to. They often felt like I was asking the questions that they really had in the back of their own minds.
Now, you mentioned sex as one of the topics, and I know that it was quite often on the show, but more often the topic was relationships. Coming through what we came through in the 60s and the 70s and trying to make some sense of life in the 70s.
Well, is it any better in the 80s?
In the 80s, right. And I'm glad to see it was all put together a couple of years ago in the book Making It, which became a bestseller and now is available in this edition, also a bestseller. And the cover reads, How to Get What You Want Out of Love, Sex, and Career.
Well, the first thing I'll say is it isn't easy.
Not easy. Well, let me go back to this. You have gone through these experiences. They're not something that being related in a third-person sense. You have sought after a career. You have had the experience of single parenthood and a divorce and other things. So you can speak from authority.
Well, you know, it's interesting. Two women came into my house yesterday. They're making a film about working women, and they started asking me all these questions about, oh, were you resentful that you had to do it all on your own, and were you resentful that there wasn't... I said, you know, I didn't have time to be resentful. I mean, I was doing it, and I guess when I look back over my life is that I was somewhat jet-propelled in the sense that I wasn't sitting down sort of I never had time to contemplate my navel too much, so maybe that's why the book came out. But what I hope to do in the book is pass on those experiences which were my own, which I think a lot of women can relate to, and a lot of men. And one of the things that I talk about in the book is that you have to find out what's right for you. I mean, you know, my formula for life is not necessarily your formula for life. And one of the keys is finding out what it is you want. It's easy to get there if you know what it is.
When we talk about relationships, the popular word in the 60s was doing your own thing. But I think the problem with that was that too many people did their own thing without due regard for other people doing their own thing. So we had, instead of good relationships, we had a series of orbits, people in their own orbits.
Well, you know, I guess I speak from a woman's point of view, and because I have been a part of the women's movement and a lot of the women's issues, it used to be that when we said compromise, a lot of times it meant that, okay, we're making a compromise, it's 80% for him and 20%, you know, for me or whatever. And then women started saying, well, look, I want 30% and 40%, and by golly, I'm going to have nothing less than 50%. And it sort of shook the barrel up a lot, and so everyone's saying, oh, all these women, they're causing a lot of trouble, but they're entitled to their 50%. They really are, absolutely. Everybody says, men especially say absolutely until it comes into their own home or their own job. You know, they say it's behind every man there's a woman who's trying to get his job, and so when she's breathing very heavy over her shoulder, then it becomes very threatening, you know.
Some of the things, issues raised in this book, questions raised in this book, and I love the phrasing of the questions. Is there friendship after divorce?
Well, there is for some people. It depends on the people and it depends on the circumstances. I think it takes time. I really do. I think it is possible. They have to want it. I think you have to let go of the emotional hook that you have in the other person, always wanting something from that other person. And I think for divorced men and women, if you're constantly trying to get something from somebody that you can't get it from, you're constantly going to be frustrated and angry, and there will always be hostility. So you have to unhook those emotions, and that takes time. And the other thing, of course, you have to settle the physical things like, you know, children, seeing the children, possessions, and so forth. And I've seen couples who operate as a kind of support system for one another, and it's really quite a good thing. And they work in joint custody for their children. It is possible, you know, but you have to want it and you have to work toward it.
The worst thing that can happen in the circumstances is for one of the partners to try to secure the loyalty of the children at a cost of turning them against the other parent.
Well, I think children are not pawns, you know, and I can speak from personal experience because I have been divorced, and I think probably for my husband and myself, my ex-husband and myself, I think the most important thing in our lives is to see our children grow up and to be healthy and mentally stable and so forth, and we work toward that. But if there's this kind of thing pulling at them and all the time, you know, it won't work. It's not good for anyone. Everyone loses out. Another question in Chapter 7, which is the sex chapter in Making It. Oh, you found that chapter, did you?
Indeed, that's the first one I read.
Notice the pages are folded.
Is there lust after marriage? I love that. Is there lust after marriage?
Oh, yeah, I remember lust. Well, you know, it's interesting. We all want that wonderful romantic excitement and those wonderful sort of passionate, lustful feelings. And it's sort of like it's like the rain. We sort of stand there and we think it's going to drop on us from I don't know, from the heavens. But it's not like that. I think after time and after a time frame reference, I think you do care about your partner. I think there's a solid kind of trust and friendship underneath it all. And if you want that kind of lust and romance and excitement and spontaneity, you have to plan it. Which doesn't sound, it sounds kind of terrible, but it's true. You know, you got two people with two careers, and you might have 3 children and mortgage payments locked in at 18%. You have to plan it. You have to make a point of seeing each other, time and space. You need that time. And there was a study done about couples and trying to find out how much time they really do spend talking to each other. I mean, not about are the bills paid and that sort of thing, but really sharing their thoughts and feelings. And they came up with this, I mean, it was just unbelievable, 17 minutes per week. I mean, men and women, married couples, I mean, really talk to each other. You know, turn off the television and talk to each other. 17 minutes per week? I know, it's shocking. And some of the viewers out there were saying, gee, what do they find to talk about? 17 minutes. That's true. But you really, you know, if you want that relationship to flourish and you want the passion to be there, you have to put something into it. It just doesn't exist on its own. It's like anything else. You want a career, you have to work at it. You want a relationship, you have to work at it. You want children to grow up and be solid, then you have to work at that too. That's the gist of Making It, and that's the philosophy of Micki Moore. Our guest today on NewsMakers, actress, author, TV hostess, and all-round good person. I urge you to get the book. That's this edition of NewsMakers. Please address your comments to the address, which will appear on the screen in just a few moments' time. I'm Pete McGarvey, and we'll see you again next week at the same hour.
NewsMakers with 590 CKEY News commentator Pete McGarvey is seen every week at this time. We welcome your letters. Write Cable 10, Rogers Cable TV, 855 York Mills Road, Don Mills, Ontario, M3B 1Z1.